In this section, we're going to cover how to write equation of parabola given characteristics, meaning if you were given a focus, a vertex, a directrix, or axis symmetry. So the characteristics that we cover in the previous section, if you were given that, you're going to use that information to write the equation of parabola. And cover in the previous video, this is the equation of parabola. Now, bear in mind, to tell the difference between these two is I always look at the square. So in the first one, I see that the square is on the y. So this one's going to open horizontally, left or right. And then here, I see that there's a square on the x. That means it's going to open vertical, up or down. Now, you have to tell the difference between these two in order to get the right formula for the vertex, the focus, the axis symmetry, and the directrix. So as long as you're able to tell the difference between those two, which I emphasize and I repeat, I always look at the square first. So here, the square on a y, so I'm going to use the formulas that is assigned or associated with the vertex, the focus, the axis symmetry, and the directrix for this equation of parabola. The second one, the square is on the x, so I will follow the formulas assigned or associated with this equation for the vertex, for the focus, the axis symmetry, and the directrix. So be very careful which one you use, or you may end up using the wrong one and get the wrong values for h, k, and or p. Now, in order to get these equation of parabola, you must find values for h, k, and p. Once you find the value for h, k, and p, all you have to do is just simply plug it in, and the only thing left you do is just find the value for p. So if you have the p value, you just multiply by 4. Now, the reason I don't rely on 4p in front of x and 4p in front of y to tell the difference is because sometimes you might have a 4p value of 1, meaning this. So if you have either these equations of parabolas and the value of 4p in either cases, if it equals to 1, it won't help you tell which is the difference. It won't tell you which equation to use, therefore it won't tell you the correct way or the correct process when it comes to vertex, focus, axis symmetry, and the directrix. So in the event if your 4p value is 1, meaning that it might have just an invisible 1 and you don't have parentheses on it, then it won't help your work, and therefore you might get the wrong values for HKP. Therefore you might get the wrong values for vertex, focus, directrix, axis of symmetry. So the process, the better way, the easiest and the most effective way to tell the difference between the two is I always look at the square first, and this only pertains to parabolas. I notice that the square is on the y, so I'm going to use the formulas that is assigned with vertex, focus, axis symmetry, and directrix. And the second one, I see the square is on the x, so I'm going to look at the formulas assigned to this equation when finding vertex, focus, axis symmetry, and directrix. So be very careful which formulas you use. Again, you must tell the difference between these two. But when we're giving characteristics, we have to take a closer look and use some logical sense to find the value for h, k, and p. Once we find those three values, we can simply plug it in. Now again, we must know which one to plug in. That's where you have to be very careful. So, once you identify which one to use, we're going to get the correct formula to find h, k, and p, and therefore we will plug in the correct equation. In example 1, And then for this particular section, we are given a vertex, which is 4, negative 10, and the focus, which is 3/2, negative 10. So right off the bat, what I notice is that these two are the same. So, meaning that basically the left value are the same when it comes to vertex and focus. Now the vertex will always be h, k. So therefore, here I can use this information. H is 4 and k is negative 10. So therefore, this is my k value. Now, between these equation of a parabola, the only one where the k value are the same between vertex and focus is this one right here, where the square is on the y. So when the k value is the same between, and I emphasize between vertex and focus, then we're going to use this equation of a parabola where the square is on the y. So in this section, in this equation of a parabola where the square is on the y, found the formula for focus where it says 3/2. This is where it's going to be h plus p. So I'm going to write right here h plus p. So what it means, h plus p is equal to 3/2. Now we know the value of h, which is 4, so I'm going to plug in 4. So 4 plus p equals 3/2. Next, what I'm going to do is we're going to solve for p. So I'm going to subtract both sides, because I want to cancel out the 4 on the left side of the equal sign. So we're going to have p equal to 3/2 minus 4. Alright, so I'm going to write it up here. So p is equal to 3/2 minus 4. So next, it's a fraction subtracted by a whole number. I'm going to change the 4 into a fraction with a common denominator of 2. So 3/2 minus 4, what's equivalent to 4 is 8 over 2. So therefore, p will equal 3/2 minus 8/2, which is going to be negative 5 over 2. So that's our p value. So I'm going to write p over here equal to negative 5/2. Alright, so that's basically the work you have to do to get your p value after you identify which equation to use, therefore get the correct formula for the focus, h plus p. Now once you find the p value, so simply we're going to plug it into this equation. I'm going to erase to make more room. Alright, so I'm going to write this equation here. And all I'm doing is going to plug in the values for p, h, and k. So my p value is negative 5/2. So since I'm plugging in and there's a 4 in the front, so what I'm going to do is include a parenthesis on the negative 5/2, and then another parenthesis because there's a parenthesis on x minus h. X, now minus h. So h is positive, so I'm just going to plug in 4. So it's going to be x minus 4. And then I'm just going to simply plug in k. Since k is negative 10, what's going to happen is I'm going to plug in negative 10 with a parenthesis, and then another set of parentheses, because this is the other set of parentheses I put it here with the square. So to review, I plug in the p value, which is right here, plug in the h value, which is right there, and then plug in the k value, which is right there. Everything else stayed the same except I include a parenthesis on the p value because I'm going to multiply with the 4. I include a set of parentheses on the negative 10 because it was negative, especially when I'm plugging in negative numbers. Again, everything stayed the same, meaning that I kept the x, I kept the minus, I kept the y, I kept the minus, I kept the square, I kept the original parenthesis from this equation. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify. So I'm going to distribute the 4 to this fraction, and then I'm going to simplify minus negative 10 here. Everything else is pretty good. So here, 4 times negative 5 half, so it's going to be negative 20 half, parenthesis x minus 4, equal y minus negative 10 will be y plus 10 squared. Now, I'm still not done because here, negative 20 over 2, you can still simplify that. That's going to be, let me move up a little bit, negative 10 x minus 4 equal y plus 10 squared. So, that will be our answer. Equation of the parabola. So if you can simplify the fraction, do so. So this is the work on how to find the equation of a parabola when you're given the vertex and focus. In the second example, with the given vertex and focus, my vertex is negative 7, comma negative 1. My focus negative 7, comma negative 49 over 48. So what I know is that my left values are the same. My vertex for this one is h, comma k. So my h value is negative 7. My k value is negative 1. So therefore this is my h value. Now for the equation of the parabola, where the h value is the same between, I emphasize between vertex and focus, is the equation where the square is on the x, the one where it opens up and down. Okay, so following that, this is the equation right here, then the formula for the focus for this one is k plus p. So I'm going to write k plus p here. So next, I'm going to work out k plus p. So k plus p is equal to negative 49 over 48. Okay, we know our k value, so this is going to help us find our p value. So I'm going to plug in negative 1 into k plus p equal to negative 49 over 48. So from there, in order to solve for p, I'm going to cancel out the negative 1. So I'm going to add 1 on the left, add 1 on the right. So it's a positive p equal to negative 49 over 48 plus 1. So next I'm going to write up here. So p equals negative 49 over 48 plus 1. Now, I'm going to change this 1 into a fraction with a common denominator of 48. So what's going to be is p will equal to negative 49 over 48 plus 48 over 48. So once we get common denominator, p will equal to negative 49 over 48 plus 48 over 48 will be negative 1 over 48. So therefore, I'm going to write p will equal to negative 1 over 48. Alright, once I get my p-value and I see that I have h, k, and p, all I'm going to do is going to plug into this equation for the values of p, k, and h. I'm going to erase to make more room. Alright, so the equation that we're going to use is the square on the x. Alright, so I'm going to plug in our p value, our k value, and our h value. So again, since there's a 4 in front of p, meaning it's going to multiply, so I'm going to include a set of parentheses on negative 1 over 48. And then another set of parentheses because of the parenthesis on the y minus k. My k value is negative 1, so I'm going to include parenthesis on negative 1, and then the original parenthesis on y minus k. X minus my h value is negative 7, so I'm going to include a parenthesis on negative 7 with the original parenthesis and the square. So be very careful with your parentheses. Alright, from there, I'm going to multiply the 4 to, so I'm going to multiply the 4 to the negative 1 over 48. I'm going to simplify the minus negative 1 and the minus negative 7. So again, all I did was plug in the p value, the k value, and the h value. Alright, when I multiply the 4 to negative 1 over 48, it will be negative 4 over 48, parenthesis, y. So from here, minus negative 1, that was going to be y plus 1, close parenthesis, equal sign, open parenthesis. So from here, x minus negative 7, that's going to become x plus 7, close parenthesis, square. Now, I'm still not finished because I can still simplify negative 4 over 48, which will become negative 1 over 12, and then everything will stay the same. So y plus 1, close parenthesis, equal, open parenthesis, x plus 7, close parenthesis, square. So that's going to be our equation of the parabola for this example. Negative 112 times y plus 1 equal to x plus 7 squared, or the square of x plus 7. And that is the work for finding h, k, p, and in order to get this equation.